Welcome everybody, and thank you all so much for joining us for today's wonderful Hub 101. You are joining the Austin Community Hub and Austin Coming Together for this month, January 2022, our very first one of the year. Our Hub 101, we are going to be discussing Austin's community plan. My name is Janelle Martin, and I am the Hub Coordinator here with ACT. As some of you may be familiar with ACT already, ACT is a backbone agency for collective impact, serving a network of nonprofit, faith-based, public and private member organizations. As part of ACT, the Austin Community Hub is a safe space to intentionally and thoughtfully engage disconnected families and individuals in collaboration with our member base to securely connect community members to holistic services such as career counseling, housing, continuing education, legal assistance, and much, much more. Part of these services include informing our community members about the different organizations and things going on in the community and the things we're working towards together. So we created Hub 101s to assist in that. Today, we're going to be re-looking at Austin's Quality of Life Plan, also known as Austin Forward Together. And we're going to be doing this with Austin Coming Together's very own planning and investment team. So we're going to go ahead and start off with some introductions. We'll introduce you to them. We're going to do a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll move into some questions. So if at any point in time, anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns they would like to be addressed at the end of the presentation, please go ahead and put them in the Facebook chat, and we'll be addressing those throughout time. I do want to acknowledge this is a positive space. We are here to work together and work as community. So I do ask that everything going in the chat, please remain positive. But with that, I would love to go ahead and introduce the planning and investment team. I'll let them introduce their names and titles and everything, but they're wonderful and I'm so excited you all get to meet them. Let me go ahead and pass it off to them. And then when you're ready, I will share the slideshow. So planning and investment, it is all yours.
Yeah, well, hello, everybody. My name is Javon Moore. I serve as the Planning and Investment Manager here at Austin Coming Together. And I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Ramsey. I've been with Austin Coming Together for over 3 years now, and I am an organizer working with community leaders to advance the Austin Quality of Life Plan, also known as Austin Forward Together. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Grace.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Cooper. I'm new to ACT almost a year now, and I serve as the project coordinator, working with these two on the Quality of Life Plan.
Okay, well, I'm starting the show. And like I said, my name is Ethan, and I'm here to really introduce you all to the beginnings of the Austin Quality of Life Plan, again, also known as Austin Forward Together. Next slide. So in 2017, over 500 residents and community stakeholders collaborated with LISC to convene a series of summits and working group sessions lasting 18 months to identify the top issue areas and assets in the Austin community. And through all of that work, extensive work, participatory work, Austin's first quality of life plan was unveiled and celebrated on December 18th, 2018 at Michelle Clark High School, with the goal of this plan being leveraged as a blueprint for systems change and investment in the community. And it's important to note that when we started to develop this plan, the steering committee of community members felt it was important that the plan connected to all parts of Austin: South Austin, Central Austin, North Austin, Galewood, and the Island, in order to create a shared vision for all of the neighborhoods and ensure that no pocket in Austin continued to face structural disinvestment. It's also important to note that while this was Austin's first quality of life plan, the community had actually applied for one, but was unfortunately denied. And so the context is that this whole process felt like a big accomplishment and was extremely energizing when it was first unveiled. Can you, next slide. So, sorry, I missed my place. So here are some photos you can see of the participatory plan making process, and you can see steering committee members, Mildred Wiley and Dolly Sherman, like pressing people to get involved in implementing the plan. And then you can also see the picture on the bottom is actually a group that's actually currently strategizing around increasing restorative justice activities in Austin. And in that picture, you can also see me when I had a thicker head of hair. But the point is I'm trying to make with these pictures are during the plan making process, we developed the following vision for Austin that helps guide the collaboration and strategizing we do through collective impact. And for those of you who might not be able to see the visual, I'm going to read the vision of the Quality of Life Plan aloud. Austin is becoming a powerful community of civically engaged residents, responsive and accountable institutions, and highly collaborative private, public, nonprofit, and faith-based leaders. And out of that power, we will create support for our youth in a high quality cradle to career education system, economic revitalization for and by Austin, safe neighborhoods for all ages, a revitalized community spirit built on our cultural and recreational assets, and lastly, a vibrant real estate market that supports homeowners and affordable housing. Next slide. So we have this beautiful vision, and it's broken down into 7 key issue areas: community narrative, economic development, education, housing, public safety, youth empowerment, and civic engagement. And in the process of creating the plan, it was very important to everyone that this document didn't just sit on a shelf once published or unveiled. As a result, we transitioned from having these working groups and these summits to developing these more systematic task forces for each issue area, responsible for overseeing the implementation of the plan. So you can see this image of these task forces and all the various stakeholders involved. And in each task force, we have task force chairs, strategy leads, and implementation partners. And a breakdown of their responsibilities, just so you have an idea of what these task forces look like. The chair's responsibilities are to provide leadership and overall direction for the task force and the implementation of the quality of life plan projects or initiatives. Now, chairs shape the vision and design of physical development projects in Austin. They help define funding priorities and are actively promoting the goals of the plan in the public realm. Strategy leads are individuals who are responsible for mobilization of organizations and resources to carry out specific strategies of the AFT plan. They're the organizers, action planning, developing strategies with a number of stakeholders. And then there are implementation partners, which are organizations that are responsible for the implementation of the action plans created for each strategy. Now, Austin Forward Together plan is not Austin Coming Together's plan, but it's the community's plan. So at ACT, our goal is to act as stewards and guardians of the Austin Comprehensive Community Plan by providing technical assistance and leadership development to these 7 task forces. And without further ado, I will pass it to do a deeper dive into the different issue areas and the activity surrounding it, and I will pass it off to my colleagues.
Great, thanks, Ethan. Yeah, so as Ethan just stated, we're going to go through all 7 issue areas and share the goals of those and some of the actions in the issue area. So each issue area has a list of actions, which are sort of like sub goals that are going to get us to these bigger goals. And we'll share different projects that are happening under those actions. So without further ado, we're going to start with community narrative. The goal of community narrative is to revitalize the image and spirit of Austin by promoting assets such as our historic housing, creating a healthy community, and building a more robust environment for local arts and culture. Next slide. Cool. So we will highlight 3 actions in this issue area. The first one being bridge the gap between residents' experiences and how they are reflected in media outlets. So on the top left here, you'll see a picture of some youth recording a podcast. So this is a project that came right out of this action. It's called Austin Has the Mic. It's a collaboration between Westside Health Authority and Build, and they were able to lead a youth-led podcast that highlights stories from Austin from the perspective of our youth. The podcast aims to build strong relationships and use digital platforms to empower Austin's youth and community residents to reclaim the narrative on the West Side. So far, they've released 25 episodes from this podcast, and you can find them on Spotify. The next action is promote healthier food choices across Austin. So under this action, we've been able to bring together a coalition called Austin Eats. This is a group of 20 plus organizations working in Austin around healthy food access. And there are a number of working groups that work on collaborative projects. And those working groups include emergency food access, gardens and farms, grocery access and culinary entrepreneurship, marketing, and food education. So as a coalition, we were able to receive funding for collaborative projects, and I'll just name a few of those that we've been able to work on the past year. The first, for food education, we hosted film screenings in the summer and fall for the community, showing documentaries on food issues that are relevant to the Austin community. These events had healthy food demos, question and answer with panelists, giveaways, and other able to support. And for emergency food access, we supported Jehovah Jireh in purchasing a van to expand their food delivery system. And with marketing, you'll see here, there's a picture. We were able to make a logo for the group. There's a website, there's a calendar of events and flyers that we were able to share throughout the summer to highlight the various events that partners in the group were putting on for the Austin community. So a lot of progress with that coalition. And that picture from the K. Ryan Center of the Arts in the middle there is from one of the film screenings. Oh, cool. So the next one is build a sense of community through activities such as creating and maintaining community gardens. So through the plan, we've been able to provide funding to different groups to support all of the gardens, or a lot of the gardens in Austin. So this includes South Austin Neighborhood Association. And the picture you'll see on the right there is of the Veterans Peace Garden and the winter light display they put on. So in this garden, it's a beautiful garden, and they host community activities for residents and for veterans there. Also, the Austin Garden Collective is a group that supports the various gardens in Austin, and they host volunteer Saturdays in the summer, going through the different gardens and providing maintenance support. So those are just a couple of things that have been the community narrative task force. And you can go to the next slide. Economic development. So the goal of this task force is to create economic revitalization in Austin and by Austin. We will support new and existing local businesses, entrepreneurs, and the workforce, improve our commercial corridors, and attract new investment to build a stronger, more dynamic local economy. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so we'll go over 3 actions in this task force. The first one being expand and support local resources like boot camps and apprenticeships in high demand economic sectors, such as advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and building and trades. So through the plan, we've been able to give financial support to a number of workforce training programs. On the left, you'll see a flyer for Manufacturing Renaissance Young Manufacturers Association program. This gives job training for youth. Also support new moms, job training and employment services for young single mothers in Austin. And we supported Jane Addams Resource Corporation in their manufacturing training program at the Freedman Seating location on the west side. The next action is survey and connect existing workforce entrepreneurship programs. So under this action, another coalition has been formed called the Austin Workforce Collaborative. There are about 12 workforce groups that work in Austin that have signed on to this collaborative, and their mission is to bring like-minded organizations together to create pathways to living wage and upwardly mobile careers for under and unemployed workers in the Austin community. So this group works together on a number of goals, a couple of them being to build and sustain the capacity of workplace training centers and programs, helping clients overcome barriers to participation, attracting investment into the Austin workforce development training programs, attract additional resources and wraparound services for working families, and promoting local job training programs in the community. And lastly, build a new manufacturing training center in Austin. So this big picture below, you'll see a drawing for the Aspire Center of Workforce Innovation. This is a focal project of the plan. So there are a couple of focal projects in Austin Forward Together. And what we mean by that is a large scale built environment or infrastructure project that intersects different issue areas and actions of the plan. So the Aspire Center for Workforce Innovation is a big one. And so the plan for this is to repurpose the closed Emmett School on Madison and Central and turn it into the Aspire Center, which will serve as a centralized location for Austin's youth, unemployed and underemployed adults seeking career training and support. And at the Aspire Center, amongst many things, they'll expand local resources for skills training in high demand economic sectors and support small businesses and entrepreneurs. So that is in the works. And I will pass it on to Javon.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. One of the things that I find so interesting about this plan is that what it does is it is able to connect different issue areas together. So just as Grace was explaining and talking about the issue area of education, the issue area of economic development, there's also the issue area of education that's grossly affecting or affected by economic development. So for instance, there's this challenge now of being able to find quality workforce. And that doesn't begin once students graduate from high school. That begins when they're in daycares, kindergarten, all the way up and through the entire education system. So from cradle to career. And so with that in mind, the goal for the education task force was for our local education system and partners to be able to provide services, opportunities, and support to help all of our students stay on track, enrich their education, and serve their needs from early childhood all the way through high school to find a job and career readiness. You can go to the next slide. So our education task force as a whole came about due to the needs that our children were and are facing. So back in 2013, 50 CPS schools throughout the city, most of them on the south and west sides, were closed and shut down. This left many of our communities devastated. That the fact that our schools were closed, these neighborhood schools were closed. And so what ended up happening is that some of our students had to go further distances to be able to go to school for elementary school. Many of them crossing over into gang territories and whatnot. And so with that happening here in Austin, we lost 4 schools. And as a result, nearly 25% of our students were lost, like they weren't accounted for in Austin anymore. So whether their parents moved them or they went to another school or what have you, the question still is up in the air. But between 2013 and 2017, we lost about a quarter of our students. And additionally, even our early education providers, many of them, 2/3 of them, have the space to enroll more children. And so there is space and opportunity to be able to receive more kids, but most of them need help getting fully accredited. And so as our education task force has set out to do and create these various actions to be able to help fix or to help amend some of these issues, some of those actions are to improve the early learning environment in Austin by helping existing providers become accredited and more deeply prepared with child development. Additionally, partner with CPS to align its curriculum for a seamless transition from kindergarten into kindergarten. So from a daycare provider into kindergarten, and then also to teach academic benchmarks to parents. Some of the successes that this task force has been able to champion, one of them is our neighbor just to the west of us, Michelle Clark, received the designation of being an IB school, an international baccalaureate school. So to be able to be a place for students in our community and surrounding communities to be able to have a place to go to receive high quality education, offer high quality classes for our students to prepare them for the next phase and stage of life for them. Additionally, our kindergarten transition program has been working with and partnering with the state of Illinois to ensure that our students will be well prepared for entering into kindergarten once they are done with their program in their daycare program. And then additionally, we've been able to help provide funding for the Austin Child Care Providers Network to help provide these providers get the necessary credentials they need to allow for them to be able to receive these other students that are waiting in that they could receive in their various different daycares. And so you can go to the next slide, and I'll pass it over to my colleague.
Hello, back to me. So you can see from this picture, right, that even though it's of just one house, that Austin has really stunning housing stock from a historical, from an architectural standpoint. Now, we have high and mighty goals for the Housing Task Force. As you can see, the Housing Task Force goal is to create a stabilized housing market in Austin with support from local homeowners and a wide array of affordable housing options. Now, in many ways, we've had the hardest time activating collaborative action around the goals in this issue area compared to others, in part because of the decentralized nature of housing and also the amount of investment it takes necessary to drive the systemic changes that we want. In other words, we welcome folks to join the housing justice work with the community plan because we have a lot of work to do. Next slide. Nonetheless, we still have made a bunch of progress. The actions we have prioritized in the last couple of years are: one, to build new quality transitional housing for populations facing specific challenges; two, preserve and invest in vacant buildings; and three, increase tenant-landlord management communication and education. Now, on the right, you can see a photo of one of Mercy Housing's buildings. They're an affordable housing provider in Austin, as well as elsewhere. And Mercy Housing, through this process, has committed themselves to increase the level of support they provide their tenants, as well as maintain their buildings to the highest standards. Now, on the left, you can see a building at 5248 West Chicago Avenue, owned and operated by Westside Health Authority. First, they rehabbed the first floor storefronts for local businesses such as Schweetz Cheesecake. And now Westside Health Authority has committed to renovating the units in the upper floors for housing people who might have barriers to accessing housing otherwise. There are also groups such as West Cook Home Ownership Center tirelessly providing home ownership classes in the community to increase the number or proportion of owner-occupied housing in Austin. At the same time, also happening is the Laramie State Bank development. You can see the vision for the Laramie State Bank in the upper right corner. Planned for the former Laramie State Bank building and approximately 20,000 square feet of adjacent land. The proposed $37.5 million project will renovate the landmark structure with commercial uses that include potentially a blues museum, a bank branch, a cafe, and a business incubator. And the adjacent land will be redeveloped with a mixed income multi-story rental building that includes a green roof, public plaza, social spaces, and outdoor art. The project is expected to generate 150 construction jobs and 22 full-time positions. This development has set out to create, in other words, high quality, affordable housing on one of Austin's most vibrant commercial corridors. Yeah, and I can pass it back to the group.
So in addition to the work of our housing task force, our public safety task force was set out. It began because there was need, particularly on the housing side. There was need as related to housing, but public safety, there was a lot of need. So as this plan was coming together at the time, Austin ranked 12th among Chicago's 77 neighborhoods or community areas for the most violent crime per capita. With that, not only that, but $500 million was spent on incarceration of Austin residents between 2005 to 2009. That's the most out of any of Chicago's communities. And this is why the goal was set out to collaborate and create programs that increase a sense of safety and community and quality of life to build a healthy and resilient neighborhood. You can go to the next slide. And so the plan here was to attack these with these actions. So by increasing restorative justice activities in the community, engaging and connecting with neighbors, and also expanding outreach and intervention programs that break the cycle of violence. And I mean, I must say that our work here among the Public Safety Task Force has been pretty tireless, but there has been some success to it. Just even in the third quarter of last year, our RJ activity has been quite phenomenal, with our number of youth being introduced to RJ is at 83, number of adults introduced to RJ, restorative justice, mind you, at 107, the number of youth trained as circle keepers to 41, and then the number of adults trained as circle keepers is 21. And I'm gonna say that's pretty important to share, because here it is. These are persons that are we're not just increasing restorative justice activities, but this is a work to help break the cycle of violence, and also to help build and promote community among one another as persons begin to talk and begin to engage with one another. So with the development of our RJ Action Planning Group as one of our wins, there's also been funding for various nonviolence prevention programs that many of our partners have been recipients of. Two of them I'll name. So one is INVC, and the other one is Build Inc. And these two partners are really hands on the ground, boots on the ground partners that are there to help make sure that the goals of the Public Safety Task Force are lived out and felt, and so that persons are able to experience these safe communities, and we work collectively towards creating these safe communities together. Additionally, Build is in the process of building their new facility. And in their new facility, located on Harrison and Laramie, in that new facility, it's going to have this space that has been designated as the Austin Peace and Justice Center. And so this will be a space, this will be almost like a hub for persons to be able to come, to be able to have and experience restorative justice, to learn about restorative justice, as well as for the group together to be able to continue the work of restorative justice, and for it to be like a hub for restorative justice right here in Austin. And I'll pass it back over to my colleague, Grace.
Okay, thanks. The next task force is youth empowerment. So the goal of this task force is that Austin will have a healthier and more engaged youth who are able to reach their full potential. You can go to the next slide. Oh, great. So we'll just highlight some activity going on in this task force. So one of the actions is to involve young people in the community and the leadership of the committee. So under this action, there's been some movement. So there's a partner in the plan called Territory. They're a nonprofit that um, does programs for youth and urban design, public art, and community engaged planning. And so a project they did was work with their youth to create a youth version of the Austin Quality of Life Plan. And so they sat around, read the plan, talked about what was important to them, and they highlighted 3 areas that are their top concerns, and that was youth empowerment, mental health, and public safety. So on the right there, you'll see a picture of the cover of their quality of life plan. Next, we have expose youth to professionals who they can relate to. So earlier we talked about Austin Has the Mic is being a program under community narrative, but it definitely intersects with youth empowerment. And that's just an example of how these projects can address multiple issue areas. And one really cool component of that program was that they had the opportunity to be mentored by professional producers at Digifay. This is a media company that worked with ACT to produce a short documentary on Austin Forward together. And so during that documentary making process, youth got to shadow these professionals, get hands-on learning and training experience through that documentary making progress. So in the middle, you'll see actually 2 pictures from the AFT documentary premiere event. There's youth from Territory at the top presenting on the youth quality of life plan, and on the bottom, some youth from Austin Has the Mic just sharing with the audience about their experience working with Digifay and learning from them. And lastly, we have create paths for youth interactions with mentor and role models. So a program that we were able to fund through the plan is the Youth Mentoring Program run by St. Joseph Services. And through this program, they provide mentorship and skills development with trauma-informed approach designed to create change in the lives of youth in Austin. And they are currently doing this program at St. Angela, one of our schools, and that's the picture on the bottom left there. Great, I will pass it back to Ethan.
So as many of you are probably aware, it's not surprising based on everything we said, Austin is a very civically minded community. Now, no matter how coordinated and collaborative we are, there remain systemic barriers preventing us from fully achieving the visionary goals laid out in the plan. So in other words, civic engagement and community organizing really need to run through the arteries of the other 6 issue areas, which is why the goal of the Civic Engagement Task Force is to sustain collaborative community involvement from community campaigns to engaging elected officials so we can bring voices and power to the efforts to improve Austin. Next slide. So the prioritized actions to date have been educating voters and increasing voter turnout, as well as training community organizers to create community campaigns. Early in, I believe, 2019, a number of partners came together to organize and host aldermanic forums and a mayoral forum in Austin in an effort to increase voter education. We learned a lot from that collaboration that can inform our future civic engagement work. And it's been really exciting to see more Austin leaders get a seat at citywide tables over the last few years. Additionally, the increased investment and development in the community raises the age-old question of who will benefit from these projects. This is part of the reason that we have created and hosted our first organizing training with our task forces in 2021, so that Austin residents are the ones who benefit from realizing the vision of Austin together. So yeah, we can move to the next slide. And there you have it. So with that, you have heard a whole bunch of updates, not all of them, but a handful of the developments around Austin Quality of Life Plan. And folks can find more info on the plan at our website, austincomingtogether.org. But what is our ask of you today? Some of you I know are already very involved and trying to get more involved or maintain your involvement. But our big ask is that we need like-minded leaders to join and help in activating actions within the quality of life plan. We also need organizations to join and become implementation partners if their work aligns with the vision in the plan. And lastly, it is vital to create more awareness of the plan so that the community vision stays at the forefront of our minds when making decisions that impact Austin for generations to come. Thank you.
And Ethan, I want to actually tag one more thing. There's a couple of different things that you can do. So in addition to reaching out to us about how you can get more informed, how to get involved with it, also to learn a little bit more. Just last year, we released our first ever documentary. And you may have heard about it or may not have heard about it, but we invite for you to go to our YouTube page and search Austin Coming Together. And there you'll find our documentary, but it's also here on our Facebook page as well. And so you just click on the video section, you'll be able to find it as well to learn a little bit more about how the community has been a part of this plan and learn a little bit more on how it's action with community and with us and how we work together to hopefully achieve these goals. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Janelle.
Thank you, wonderful planning and investment team. Just so everyone's aware, I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint right now, but I will toss it back on if anybody is interested in having Ethan's email address. But we are open for questions now. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a couple questions we had from some participants who had registered. If anybody who is currently watching this has any questions, comments, concerns, again, please feel free to toss them into the Facebook chat and we will address them as they come in. Again, though, just as a reminder, this is a positive and respectful space. So I do ask that anything that you are putting in the chat also follow that. But to get us kicked off, our first question is, when will the Austin area have a name brand grocery store such as a Jewel's, Mariano's, Pete's, or coffee shop like Starbucks? P&I, you are welcome to take it away.
So I'll go ahead. So to our knowledge, there aren't necessarily any of those particular chains or those brands that have given interest to come to Austin. But there is Works and one of our partners actually with the AFT Austin Forward Together plan. Her name is Elizabeth Abenow. She is working aggressively along with the city, along with her funders as well, to be able to open up a grocery store on Chicago Avenue. This would be a Black-owned grocery store. In addition to that, one of our other groups and one of our other partners, the Austin Community Co-op, takes on the task of working together to open up a cooperative grocery store here in Chicago. Some other communities have worked on that as well, and so that's one of the things that we're doing as it relates to grocery access also.
Thank you, Javon. Ethan, Grace, do one of you want to tag in on that?
I think Javon did a beautiful job.
Okay, awesome. Our next question is, how does ACT/the Hub support job seekers and adults pursuing their GED / high school education? Do you partner with any organizations or job centers that do this work? I will let P&I grab this really quickly if y'all want to start off, and then I'll hop on afterwards. Ethan, you're muted.
Can you ask that question? Sorry, my bad.
No problem. It is, how does Austin Coming Together / the Hub support job seekers and adults pursuing their GED / high school education? So this really is more of a hub question. I don't know if y'all want to answer any part of it, but do you partner with any organizations or job centers that do this work? If you want to focus on that part, and then I can address the first part of the question.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think a lot of what our work has involved is working with one workforce training programs, and often those workforce training programs have certain expertise or levels in reading and mathematics that you have to be privy to before you can start the training. And we've noticed over time, a lot of workforce training programs have noticed that that can raise some barriers. And so there's been a real increase in trying to put investment into what we call bridge programming to provide more space for Austin residents or people from Chicago to basically work on those skills to be able to be prepared for the training, the skilled training programs that follow. Additionally, and this is slightly a different answer, but hopefully it just adds another level of context, which is we work very closely with Austin Child Care Providers Network, and they work with over 50, I believe, home-based and center-based childcare providers in the Austin community. And they care a lot about not only increasing the pay, the salary for these small businesses in the community, but also working with them to get them connected to institutions like Malcolm X, city colleges, to try to get them higher accreditation so that they're able to provide higher quality education to the young kids, the children of Austin. So hopefully that's somewhat helpful.
Thank you, Ethan. Javon, do you want to jump on really quickly? Grace?
I think Ethan explained that one quite well.
Okay. To answer the first portion of this question, to kind of additionally answer the second portion as well, the Austin Community Hub absolutely does have resources that we can look at connecting community members who are looking to complete their GED or high school diploma. I can toss up the hub flyer back up there at the end of this presentation for everyone who is looking to get connected. Again, my name is Janelle. I'm the hub coordinator here. We partner with various programs. So for instance, the West Side Learning Center here in the neighborhood of Austin, which is hosted by the City Colleges and Malcolm X. They have programs that are able to support you in that. If you're connected with New Moms, they have programs that are able to support you in that, as well as the Jane Addams Resource Corporation and a couple other of our member organizations. So really, depending on what programs you're looking to be involved in, what next steps you're wanting your path to take, we can get you connected with not only that GED program or high school education, but as well as supports for afterwards as well. I hope that answers that question. I am going to move on to the next one. Our next question is from Barbara Catchings-Fletcher, who is currently watching. Thank you for joining us. And it's, where is the help for current homeowners in Austin that would like help with upkeep of their property? So again, the question is for current homeowners in the Austin neighborhood, where is the help that would be able to assist them with current upkeep of their properties?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, Barbara, thank you so much for throwing that in there. There are a couple of things that that we can kind of walk you through and guide you through. I'll just go through a couple here, but what I want to encourage you to do is to give us a call at our office at 773-417-8606. 773-417-8606. And I'm sure somebody's throwing that in the chat as well. But you want to speak with a young lady by the name of Natalie Goodwin, and just ask for her, or at least actually leave a message for her. She's responsible for our MMRP program, which stands for Micro Market Recovery Program. I know that sounds like a lot, but essentially one of the responsibilities is to be able to help provide information to homeowners like yourself that might need some sort of improvements and whatnot. And depending on where you live, there may be some additional resources that might be able to help gear towards that. One of the programs that definitely comes to mind is through CETA. I know that they do a weatherization program to help provide windows and sometimes weatherizing as it relates like furnace replacements or furnace repairs. things like that for families that might meet a certain criteria as it relates to income, household size, that type of thing. And depending on how much funds they have available at the moment. There may also be some other programs available, but what I want you to do is make sure you give us a call or shoot us a message and ask specifically for Natalie. And she'll be able to help guide you through and walk you through on that. And I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, Janelle might have a little information on that as well.
Thank you, Javon. Yes, as Javon was saying, Natalie Gooden, our MMRP coordinator, she can look at getting you some information about that, as well as here at the Hub. We do have some resources when it comes to home repairs and resources around that. I do want to let everyone who's watching know today, those programs are currently on a limited basis right now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't resources out there. So if you give us a call, we can take a look and see what programs and resources, and if not those fundings, there's always city fundings and city loan programs we can look at as well. But give us a call and we can find something that works best for you and your family. To move on to the next question, it is from Tiffany Grant, and she wants to know, who did you bring to the table to help inform this work and how, from a collective impact standpoint? So again, who was brought to the table and how?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, I want to do a shout out to Barbara. We distributed foods at food mobilizations back a couple summers ago, and I'll never forget working with you. Secondly, I want to answer this great question by Tiffany. And I said it pretty quickly, but I said 500 community stakeholders ended up their voice were embedded in the creation of the quality of life plan. But I think there's a deeper, lengthier response to that question that I feel very excited to talk about, which is early on when Austin Coming Together was kind of designated the responsibility to kind of like spearhead the facilitation of the quality of life plan creation. There was a process of engaging, I think over like between 30 and 50 community leaders, from block club leaders to faith-based leaders to people who might operate organizations in the community, to have one-to-ones to see, hey, are you willing to become part of this steering committee to think through how to develop this quality of life plan, or do you know people who would be interested? And from that process was the creation of this steering committee that comprised of over 20 community stakeholders. Some of them, I'm sure, on this video chat or Facebook Live right now. But that wasn't all, right? So there's a group of 20 people who kind of were responsible for making sure the community and community stakeholders from all over were engaged in making sure that this plan had a holistic vision. And so what ended up happening was each steering committee member was asked to bring more and more people to the table. And there was a initial kind of launch of creating the plan I believe it was at By the Hand Club, where hundreds of people from the community showed up and were at round tables, and political figures were there and also sat at those tables just like everyone else, and spent time figuring out what are the things that we want to see happen in the community. And that was actually the initial meeting where it was decided, based on consensus building, that there should be the 7 issue areas that we mentioned from there. And from that point on, there was an engaged body that repeatedly not only started to come to working group meetings and continue to fine tune the vision and the actions, but also bring in more people. So if you go and see the electronic version of the quality of life plan at our website, you will find the exact names of every single person who participated in those working group meetings.
Thank you for that, Ethan. And just as a reminder, people can find access to this plan on our webpage, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so for our next question, it is from Miss Regina Hampton. She wants to know, is there room for a health initiative which includes health and wellness, i.e. mental health, physical health, and etc.? Again, the question, is there room for a health initiative?
That's a really good question. It looks like Javon and I both might take this a little bit. Yes, there is definitely room for a health initiative. It's a really good question and something that you can. I'm going to take it this route. Something that's very unique about this plan is that health and wellness is woven into many of the different issue areas within the plan: youth empowerment, public safety, community narrative, and so it's something that we're figuring out how to what are the different ways to approach it, and how can we make sure that there's not disconnections among that work. But to date, we've been thinking a lot about health and wellness through food and our Austin Eats initiative, and trying to think about improving the food ecosystem in the Austin community. In some ways that we've been doing that, I know Grace mentioned earlier, such as expanding the farmers market, helping support the gardens that are all throughout the community. But there also is an effort that I think is building, and encourage you to participate in it, around mental health. I know that there's a strategy lead actively working with youth, Aisha Oliver, thinking about how can we increase the access to mental health services for young people in Austin. So a lot of it is what do you call it, percolating, or in development, and definitely seems like a huge priority, especially when it comes to community narrative, youth empowerment, and a more expansive understanding of public safety.
Yeah, Ethan, I think you hit the nail right on the head with all of that. One of the things that definitely does come to mind, though, is, and I believe Grace alluded to this earlier when she was talking about our Youth Empowerment Task Force. There is a group that serves within our Youth Empowerment Task Force called Territory that put together their own quality of life plan. And that was actually one of the things that they highlighted, was that there was a need for mental health to be addressed, particularly from a youth standpoint. And so, as much to Ethan's point, it's kind of interwoven in between the various different issue areas. You'll find it here and there, but it is definitely living and breathing within the plan. So, but thank you. That's a very great question.
Thank you both. That is all the questions we have for right now. Is there anybody who's listening who has any other questions they want to toss in the chat? I'm happy to wait a couple of minutes. Ethan, Grace, Javon, is there any other information that you're wanting community members to know about the plan or know about their accessibility to it that may not have been touched on yet? I know that's a big question to kind of put you all on the spot for. I apologize.
Well, I'll give a stab at it. So maybe not necessarily something that hasn't been touched on, but I do just want to uplift the fact that you can actually find this on our website. So at austincomingtogether.org, you can find the plan right on our website. In addition to that, I believe it might have been thrown into the chat at some point in time. So you can probably peruse through the chat to find it. Additionally, you can also find our documentary video that kind of explains the plan in this format that is in this creative format. For you to be able to watch and listen. And so we invite for you to check that out too. You can check it out here on this Facebook page, or you can go to our YouTube page and search Austin Coming Together, and you'll find that particular video on our YouTube page.
Thank you, Javon. And to continue what Javon is sharing, I'm going to go ahead and toss up the Austin Coming Together website. So as you're seeing, this is our website right here. If you click on the Austin's Community Plan tab, that takes you directly to, we have an overview and recent projects, download the plan. So this is what we were mentioning earlier about you can actually read through the entire plan. It is extensive. I believe it's 70 something pages. There is a shortened and abbreviated version of it that we also have access to, but you can download the entire plan, as well as Javon was mentioning, you can watch the documentary right here, as well as going to YouTube. And then we have some news and then the initiatives broken down. But the general Austin Community Plan page looks like this. And you're able to get kind of a run through as to the history of the plan, how we got here, and where we're looking to go together. let me stop sharing this for a real quick second because it looks like we got another request. Can we talk about us using geographic maps to assure distribution of needed programs and services, my apologies, to all of Austin? Somebody said, I've seen examples of these in your strategic plan. This question is coming from Daniel. And he, again, is wanting to know if we can talk about how we are using geographic maps to assure distribution of needed programs and services to all parts of Austin.
Yeah, I can answer that. Hopefully I'll do a sufficient job. And I'll give 3 examples of when we've used geographic maps to guide kind of how activity happens. One is, it's so simple, and it was not led by anyone at ACT. It was led by one of our strategy leads, but there is a group called the Austin Garden Collective that works on, again, increasing the number of volunteers and stewards of the gardens and the urban agricultural spaces in Austin. And they meet, and early on when they were developing a strategy of increasing the green spaces to build community, there was this mapping process where they looked at where are there a lot of gardens, where are there less gardens, and they came to this realization that in the northeast part of Austin, there was way fewer gardens. And the historical reasons of those are probably, we could talk for a long time about that, but it became a priority over the years to, if we're going to increase investment and create more gardens and urban farms, it's important to try to focus on that part of Austin. And so even within the last year, one of our partners, Bethel New Life, recently, who's creating a larger wellness campus, like really prioritize and trying to catalyze their work by creating a garden in the northeast part of Austin. So that's the first example. The second example is, and I can't speak to all the nuances and complexity, but that a lot of our housing work is focused on the micro market recovery program area. And that's the area that was hit the hardest by the foreclosure crisis in 2008. And so we just feel like it's important because of, the historical nature of that section of Austin being hit harder with that, to prioritize investment and make sure that people know about all the opportunities and the great housing in that area. And then third, and this is, again, I wouldn't always talk about it in the terms of the quality of life plan, but a lot of the partners who are committed to actions in the quality of life plan, there's a group called My Shy, My Future. And what they've spent the last couple of years doing is really looking at where are all the after school programs and in-school programs for young people and where are they located, as well as what schools have access to what various programs. And that's going to help guide the strategy both within the school systems as well as outside of what types of programming is there less of, which is there more of, and also what do young people want more of, and helping that guide investment. So those are 3 examples of us using maps to help guide our decisions.
Thank you, Ethan. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes for any other questions. If anybody wants to toss those last minute questions into the chat, I am going to really quickly reshare Ethan's email address as well as our hub flyer. So again, let me get these pieces tossed up here for anybody who is interested in connecting for being involved in the plan or is interested in just some general more information, you're welcome to contact Ethan here at Austin Coming Together. Again, his email is eramsey@austincomingtogether. Please feel free to reach out to him, questions about the plan if you're wanting to get involved, and we can absolutely see how to get you part of us. The other piece I want to share, one second. is the Austin Community Hub flyer. So just as a reminder, here at the Austin Community Hub, we are able to connect disconnected families and individuals with services. This is just a short list of some of the various services we can connect you all with. We do have a large member network service, and they provide various services, programs, and resources. Again, my name is Janelle Martin. I'm the hub coordinator. You can reach me down here. This is my phone number, 708-529-5042. You can also reach me at my email, jmartin@austincomingtogether, and we can get working together and see what next steps might look for you. Okay. So it looks like we haven't had any other questions pop up. So I think we may be done. I'll give it just a quick couple more seconds. But I do want to do a big thank you and big round of applause to Austin Coming Together's planning and investment team. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's Hub 101. I know I've been here with ACT for a while now, but it's always nice to have a refresher on what our plan as a community is together. So thank you all for sharing and talking about this with us. And that wraps up to this month's Hub 101. So again, thank you. Next month, we will be joined by Manufacturing Renaissance. Let me get their page tossed up here really quickly. Our Hub 101 next month will be February 15th, again, Tuesday from 12:30 to 1:45 with Manufacturing Renaissance. They will be talking with us about their programs and resources that they have offering. They do offer various programs surrounding manufacturing. You can take a look at their webpage here. They have policy and advocacy, various career pathway services, some economic development, and then supportive services as well. Again, this will be our next Hub 101, February 15th from 12:30 to 1:45. Thank you all again, planning and investment. Thank you. And we will send you off and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.